a critical business service is any service that is done by a firm or on behalf of the firm by any person or a vendor, where a service is provided to one or more clients, and if that service is disrupted, then it will cause a lot of intolerable harm to the firm and to its clients, one or more clients. So it's very important to understand the difference. It has to have an impact on the firm or its client, as well as it may pose a risk in terms of stability or resiliency of the firm or the client. So those are the services that are called critical business service, where it has a very substantial impact on either one or more of the clients of the firm, and it impacts the resiliency and stability of the company. So first of all, in order to define a critical business service, it is important to clearly segregate that critical business service. So we should be able to identify that critical business service. Secondly, we should be able to identify the users who are performing those critical business services. So that the impact, if that critical service goes down, can be ascertained. Now, there are some other characteristics, not a complete or exhaustive list, but it will help you to identify which are the services that can be categorized as critical business service. One could be the nature of the consumer base. For example, whether it's a retail client or an institutional client. So accordingly, you have to identify a critical business service. Then size of the consumer base, which means like is it going to impact 10 customers or it is going to impact 10,000 customers. So size of the consumer base is very important. Then data sensitivity, the impact it is going to have, whether it will cause a financial or reputational loss to the firm, or will it only impact some part of the service. Whether a substitute is available, whether we have a substitute in another location or global location, whether we can transfer that critical business service via remote working, or we can transfer to another location. So these are some of the very important criteria to be used to define the critical business service. So typically a list of critical business services should not be more than 20% in any firm. So basically the intent is to focus on the right outcomes and right services which impact the maximum, and especially impacting the external clients. Now there are some services like payroll or HR which will not be categorized as critical business service, but they are enablers of critical business service, which means like we have to focus on the right critical business service which will have an external impact to the clients. So it will obviously be around 20%, top 20% of the critical business services will be called as critical business services. If we go by this critical business service identification approach, the first benefit is we'll be able to focus on the right outcomes which are manageable for the firm, and we can invest some amount of energy, time, as well as cost to find out alternate ways to do those critical business services. For example, if we want to do this critical business service, the alternate location needs to be found out. So then we can take the help of the senior management and get the approvals for setting up the alternate location. So that is why it is important to segregate the critical business service, so that you can have more measures, you can have accountability, and invest the right amount of focus and cost by the senior management to identify an alternate way of doing that critical business service, so that in the event a disruption has occurred, we are able to repatriate or overcome that particular risk by performing that critical business service by an alternate location or method. So in order to comply with regulation, the first thing is to identify a list of clearly identified critical business services. So it should be an exhaustive list, and it should be very upfrontly laid out by the senior management, and it should be signed off by the senior management. So this is the critical business service list that our firm has, which we need to ensure that if disrupted, we need to find out an alternate solution to perform those services. And then secondly, the thing is that we have a proper buy-in with from the senior management. They have signed it off, and there is a proper criteria being used to define those critical business service. Because regulators will ask, how did you identify, what was the methodology used to identify those critical business service? So you should be able to clearly lay out what is the criteria or the characteristics you use to segregate non-critical business services from the critical business services.